Chill here with Sirius Talis Moon. This is Mars, our soul day, and the Sun is 1 degree Sagittarius, Mars is 13 degrees Sagittarius, Ascendant is 25 degrees Gemini. Mercury is retrograde, 24 degrees Scorpio, in between Venus and Black Moon Lilith, and the midheaven is 8 degrees Pisces, with Jupiter in the second house, 24 degrees Cancer. Moon in Capricorn. And let's talk about chart of Myanmar. For those who are thinking about the concept of 15-minute cities and the concept of making cities profitable, I'm talking about Myanmar. We have the Myanmar earthquake. Okay. There is no later chart of that. So we're talking about ascendants. Oh, ascendant close to Antares. Jupiter in its home sign. Sol and Lilith. 12 degrees Capricorn together with Mercury. Venus 12 degrees Aquarius. Uranus 23 degree Gemini. Myanmar is one of the countries that are about to civil war clock. So Moon in Libra with Neptune, midheaven in Virgo, Mars in Virgo, Saturn Leo, Pluto Leo, and Rahu 22 degrees Scorpio. So let's talk about Myanmar, because what prompted me to press record is this video that talks about scam human trafficking cities and some matcha ice cream. Why not? No, that's not the one. I don't have rights for this video. The scam cities in Myanmar with people that, and this is Nahana. Okay, I'm gonna. Okay. Exposing Myanmar's secret scam cities. So this is basically the model of 15-minute cities, where people come to those places from Thailand or the Thai border, and they try to immigrate or work immigrants, and then they're being kidnapped and trafficked. They're being electrocuted, and those that do not agree to work or cannot work 17 hours, basically either they sex traffic them or they organ harvest the people. So this is by and large the model of 15-minute cities. For those that are invested in such projects, profitable city model is the model of human trafficking and organ harvesting. This is how a city becomes profitable. A city that's supposed to hold sovereign people cannot be anything but a non-for-profit organization. The minute a city is profitable now, in Israel, a closer model to that is Kiryat Gat, um, also Yavne, and this is where, if I look at the chart of Myanmar, it's civil war clock, and they have Uranus about the degrees of NATO, and if I'm not mistaken, also United States. Let's look at the civil chart. Um, so the good news is that we're in civil war clock. The good news, Gemini rules cities. The good news, the civil war is going to be about the organ harvesting, human trafficking, and slavery in cities, particularly digital cities. 15-minute cities is a Gemini model. Okay, Gemini rules is ruled by Mercury. Gemini rules cities, is ruled by Mercury that rules technology, but also small spaces and something that is short. Let's say Saturn in Gemini is exactly a structure that is short to get to from here to there. So that is exactly the 15-minute cities, and the model to build them as profitable cities is about to explode because this is a civil war clock, and it's a civil war on the 15-minute cities concept of a profitable city. It cannot be a profitable city without basically losing sovereignty and abusing and this is because the people would need to protect themselves. They would need to replace the mayor. They would need to have voting. They would need to have each and every person to have a sovereignty. The five memes, the five memim, okay, the Jabotinsky five memim, which basically is mazon, malbosh, okay, food, clothes, mamon, maon, I'm sorry, apartment, not apartment, housing. House is not apartment unless you want neighbors fighting with one another, and then the best way to unite the neighbors is around a common enemy, which is of course the regime. What would bring, no, think about it. What would bring people together when you have a building? One comes from Morocco, one comes from Ukraine, one comes from Gaza, one comes from Amsterdam, one comes from United States, one comes from China, one comes from India. What do they all have in common? One is a single woman, one is a single mother, one is a stay-at-home dad. What brings them together? What do they all have in common? But if each and every one of them has a house, they will still find and land. They would still find things to fight about, but it would be more bureaucratic to to do so. Um, and yes, so. Uh, but the concept of the profitable city is only profitable by human trafficking, organ harvesting, and slavery. And that is, and by the way, this is a Masonic concept. I know when I volunteered in supposedly developing neighborhoods that were very strong neighborhoods that the municipality, the mayor, has changed. That was decades ago, and and they crushed the unions of the neighborhoods because they were too strong neighborhoods. And they were considered too sovereign. And then I came to volunteer there decades later as it was developing neighborhood. Um, and then we had people from the Masons. So some of the volunteers were Masonic, and they were thinking about a 15-minute city and they were thinking about deportation of all the old residents. Okay, and that's the big idea there. It's Robert Caro. I know Mark Rutte was inspired by Robert Caro. From that's how I heard about it. I did Mark Rutte's chart, and there was the power broker. and that was basically the destruction of New York, which is basically a mini genocide, and and the rebuilding of New York. Yes, if you don't like Ruta for being inspired by that, you will have to tend to the things Anneke Lucas is talking about, because that was basically allegedly his upbringing. So, but those 15-minute cities that are supposed to be profitable cities are basically exactly what we see in Myanmar. And within the following 7 years, oh, the Sibley chart has Uranus 8 degrees Gemini. So Israel has, NATO has the Uranus closer to the N degrees, and Israel has Uranus, I think, close to NATO's Uranus. So, looking at this chart, we can see how the model of a trafficking scam city, okay, requires a lot of planning. As you know, if somebody wants to build a house somewhere, there are Americans that cannot put the RV on their own land, even if it's fully paid. And it's their schoolmate that tells them, that works in the municipality, that tells them, that gives them the order to evacuate from their own land. Not because they didn't pay property tax, they just are not allowed, they need to build a house according to specific. So you understand that structure of those scam cities required a shit ton of planning, shit ton of bureaucracy, and must have been authorized not just by the Myanmar government, but by whoever actually owns the land and the natural resources. So we would have to look at which oil companies, which rare earth minerals infrastructure providing companies, which monarchy is it associated to, or dynasty. Okay, is it because even, for example, Israel never owned land. We had a 100 years renta. Okay, from Jordan, and from the British Mandate. Okay, there's 100 years, a century that Israel could use the land, and that century was about to be expired, and then China bought the land, and probably US bought the land, and the entire region all the way to the Nile is considered a new Egypt. That is an American concept. And yes, so that basically means that the genocide that took place in Palestine took place on those who gave the right to own the land, to not order to build on the land or to do agriculture on the land. I need to watch that video where China is thinking to feed hungry Americans. If you want to, where did I saw? There is. No, I will need to see that. That China wants to made an ad that it wants to feed hungry Americans. It should watch out, because learning from America and doing that to America might be funny, but it also means that they have to that they have to work with civil war clock, and they will be seen as the perpetrators, but otherwise they would look to the gas companies and oil companies, and the Brazilians. And now they have China in together with that list. So interesting times. Um, yes. So, for example, the genocide that took place on in Palestine, is it owned by the British monarchy? Is it owned by China? Because in that case, on the real estate of China, there was violation of human rights, or the British monarchy, and so on and so forth. Um, which means that if they, okay, that they are the owners of the real estate where the war crimes happen. Um, so they also should be, whether it is compensations or whether it is uh, basically active participation by not stopping the what the EU defines as genocide. Okay, because that puts Israel as a proxy of whoever actually owns the land. And I know that the Rockefellers are interested in drawing the oil from the Dead Sea. And actually, they want to use the method they use in Estonia. That's how I know about it, because the nature rights began to rave all about it and say this is the worst method to drill oil. I don't understand why in 2025 anybody needs oil or gas, but it is. That's another question. But I'm more concerned about abolishing the extortion cults that Anneke Lucas is talking about, because that does, believe it or not, even more harm to the ecosystem. Okay, that generates the people that agree to destroy the ecosystem, and this is the, if we take into account the cloning project, is literally the means of production of evil. So, um, so this is something, yes, we should really be aware of, because this is the model of profitable cities. Okay, it's a slavery-based model, and this happens at the booming of people beginning to um, understand or evolve. Okay, and follow the money, take financial freedom, and so on, and neurodivergence, the connection between neurodivergence and neurodivergence as basically the adaptation of the ontological unit called human being to um, basically the life that rebels against slavery and trafficking. So the effect of slavery trafficking, I think the effect of organ harvesting on the mind and the body are quite obvious, but the by the way, the blood donations, they're done in a situation, and I talked about that. I think a person has to sit there for half an hour with a huge needle in their vein and just get used to that, and it's painful, and it's useless because they could do it like a normal blood test and same needleless blood test and have it 2 sessions, and then it would increase the absorption of the patients because we would reduce the trauma to the body on both the donor side and the recipient side. Um, and that is um, but the ritual of unnecessary pain, that's considered a kind of like a sacrifice, um, and even almost a must. It is a bloodletting ritual. It's taking something as simple as donating blood that can be done in a quiet, easy environment, um, and both improve upon the health condition, blood rejuvenation of the patient, granted that they have access to minerals, vitamins, nourishing food, and so on. And the receiving patient. So patients that, and this is the same with organ harvesting versus organ donation. There was a person that needed a kidney in hospital in Israel, and the problem is that there are so many rapes, like the case of Giselle, rapes under anesthesia that happen because of those secret societies where they need to get a final, doctor like this, doctor like that, and they need to film so that they are trusted, so to speak, to comply with, military operations, and later we find out that it was castration and so on. So to comply with that, they need to rape the children and people under anesthesia and have it filmed. Um, so they are extortable and trusted, and then it's making it literally impossible to find donor. And when donor receives something from organ harvesting, first of all, the donor side might not even know that. Okay, in 15-minute cities, they won't know that because that would be their insurance. Okay, they won't even see where the organ is coming from, and that decreases the chances of actually the body agreeing to accept the organ, um, also from the recipient side. So that can cause tremendous complications. Organ harvesting is absolutely not a sanitized environment, nor is it an environment that puts the donor, because it's not a donor. And this means for a patient that, let's say, needs a kidney and goes through dialysis every day, which means that, and not only that, upon each time where is an attempt to implant an organ, it costs a shit ton of money. But not only that, the immune system needs to be repressed in order for the body to accept the organ, which makes the patient incredibly susceptible to disease. And then if it doesn't work the first time, they have to take out the organ, which means it's another, that for the organ harvesters, they would have the interest that the person would take several times to get the implant, and that is because each one of these times is more money. And so Actually, I know cases where people were implanted with kidney that they were told is from a pork. Um, Big, and now I don't know if they were told that way or not. Um, but this is, again, all of that would not be possible without the expandable children projects and the elite child trafficking projects, which is what Anneke Lucas is talking about, because this is where they manufacture that type of evil that it takes to go along the procedure of doing those type of things. Um, so this is basically what 15-minute cities are, and it all starts because people rape. Okay, if they didn't rape children, the children will never become this evil, and this is the major part in turning a child into a serial killer, organ harvester, human trafficker, mass assassinator, dictator, and so on and so forth. Given that the child doesn't get the right to exit violence and is forced to do those type of things, and it's done with together with the Stockholm syndrome, in which they use nourishment together with torture. Um, Testimonies talk about, Anneke Lucas talks about splitting the hemispheres. And by the way, as a aromatherapist, having something like a mint essential oil in good distance and doing that yoga practice of breathing from one nostril in, then blocking the other nostril, then switching the finger, breathing out through the other nostril, and then from that other nostril in, and so on, and changing, shifting the face, alternate breathing. And if you join something like a mint essential oil, make sure that there are no, okay, consult an aromatherapist before you pick the oil. Make sure you're not buying from a pyramid scheme, and it's actually a distillery and so on. And adding the essential oil is increasing, reactivating basically parts. And for other tips, there's the great courses of Anneke Lucas, who is also a yoga teacher. And she's starting a course in a couple of days, so you can go to Anneke Lucas. She's on Facebook. And she's survivor of sex trafficking as child to the elite, so that actually in a very unfortunate way gives her great competence at being able to relate and have techniques that can assist in a lot of types of trauma. So it goes from things like she's been through to people that want to shift the power um, and actually create changes in their lives. So it's not affiliating link. I don't make money out of that. I just listen to Anneke Lucas a lot, and I find the information that she's sharing incredibly healing, useful. It's not necessarily easy listens, but she does deliver the information in ways that are very accessible. Okay, those that need trigger warnings, then I guess it's not always they will need to contact Lucas to see if, um, what type of framework for that. But for people that um, uh, went through certain things and are in the stage where they're ready to hear the testimonies, or people that simply um, want to learn about how to shift power dynamics and get some good tips and tricks of sustaining mental health and well-being, embodied health, okay, body, mind, health, and well-being. Um, yes, of course, this we're all sovereign. Some people might find it more compatible, some people less, and that is everybody for to check with themselves. But this is one option that I know of a person that really went through those type of things and is open about that, and um, so yes, more things to say. Other than that, Uranus, well, Myanmar has Rahu eclipses in its fourth house, which is probably why we hear about these things. Same as United States. So in United States, we hear about ice um, and the developments there. Um, yes, and this is shout out to Permaculture's channel. I know I haven't been catching up um, recently. Permaculture's channel from Oregon. Um, she's talking about Portland. And by the way, ICE is very likely funded from classified projects, which is public money funneled back to do economic hitmanship. Also, the trafficking rings, the entire project that Annika Lucas is talking about, is funded by classified project budget from taxpayers' money. And whatever your opinion about taxation, okay, um, whether you are in favor or not in favor of tax payment, the transparency about classified projects is, and I actually tagged the Israeli police, and I thanked the Israeli police for actually saving the block from burning yesterday. But the classified projects at the age of air is about to be leaked. Um, and I think also for BIPOC, Palestinian, Arab-speaking people, I know that those that at the higher link of the chain, they're not. They're not BIPOC. They're not. They may be Arab-speaking, but they're not the same people that are considered a violent minority and so on and so forth. They may be an oil giant somewhere, but they're not. Probably the young people that are sent to to burn down houses or worse things and so on, way more yielding would be to leak lists. Because if you burn down a place, you're the violent Arab that raped or that burned down a place, or that replace the violent Arab with the violent black person, and or whatever the BIPOC people. But if you leak a list, you take that energy and resources into hacking not civilians, but actually the things that are important to leak and so on, then you do two things. One, the people that are going to leave you stranded after you've committed the crime are now being exposed. And number two is that you're no longer that violent, beaten Arab or black person or minority, or because otherwise it just falls on a certain stereotype, it plays a certain stereotype, and it always ends the same. It always ends in, no matter how higher up the rank. What's the problem with Epstein? They used him and then looted his real estate. Okay, Ketu with Uranus and Saturn in Gemini in 2030, the eclipses, is the bombing of the 15-minute cities, okay? The bombing of the ghettos. Is Ketu, not Rahu. If it was Rahu, Saturn, Uranus, I'd be saying, oh my God, digital prisons, 15-minute cities. No, they are going to build the cities and bomb them. That Ketu is, wherever we have Ketu, okay, is the purging of the material manifestation of something. So 15-minute cities, Saturn, short Saturn time, Gemini short, Gemini cities, Uranus digital, Saturn prison, Ketu purging the physical, bombed. Okay? Buchenwald, okay? Bergen-Belsen, Auschwitz, okay? Bombed, 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 bombed. Later, a museum of shoes or something. But there's no Jupiter. Jupiter is going to be. Jupiter is shoes. What are they going to make a museum of? I don't know. Um, okay, so. And that's important to remember because these are crimes against humanity. Of course, somebody's, with jurisdiction. Um, Austin Coppock, when he taught Libra in the astrology podcast, basis of the 12 signs, the 12 houses, and so on and so forth, classic introduction to astrology. And he talked about the scale of Libra, and he's married to Stellium in Libra, so he knows what he's talking about. Is both the scale of judgment and the scale of trade. Okay? Now, in the best sense, it would mean that it's fairness in jurisdiction and fairness in trade. And that is indeed Spica. Okay, the fixed star Spica. That being said, for those that believe in perpetual trauma, or because of trauma, they believe in the do as thou wills. And that is basically causing them to think that when they are, I'll actually say that it causes them to think that when they burn and rape and ravish and torture and this and that, they do as they will. They're not even connected to their own will, because to access our own will, we have to ask ourselves what's beneath our traumas. Okay, what do I actually want? And so, one of my greatest trauma recovery questions, okay, and I'm quite good in asking questions. In fact, that was my major expertise, because I come from the world of academia, and because I asked so many questions, I had to take a break from academia. Because the answers, when we ask the right questions, then the answers tend to reveal themselves. So one of the greatest questions I asked upon recovery is, had I not been traumatized, what would I want to manifest in my life? What's underneath? Now, for those that either don't ask this question or whatnot, and do work to take the the concept or the existing thing and try to invert it, then they would tip the scales, the odd scales. And I think through the Verstigen, I also noticed that in one of the documents that I was reading in Dutch of the odd scales, and through the Verstigen indeed proves to me that the odd scales is the inversion of scales. And that would be the inversion of justice and the inversion of fair trade. So um, so when it comes to yes, the juristic system, um, basically with the odd scales, nothing can be built that is okay, that is balanced, and nothing can be built that holds, that stands the test of time. Um, Saturn exalts in the scales, in the sign of the scales, and yes, so this is what I have to say about this topic. Um, okay. So those that are invested in profitable cities are basically, if a person is consciously invested in that, um, then how should I say that? It means that when they follow the money, they see that person's um, there, or that person's signal, the way they say in frequency language. Um, yes, this is basically what I have to say. Um, well, one of the people that began to have the process of discerning when it comes to the occult between the inversion occults and the actual occults is Gigi Young. And Gigi Young, when I was working on my thesis proposal, I found books of, I think that guy was called Elliot Smith, not a musician. Elliot something. This was my theoretical framework. It was Larry Loudon and the structure of consciousness. They talked about the role of design, the emergence and top-down processes. Um, and then I ran into J.D. Young's channel, and she introduced the concept of discernment when it came to occult, and the generative, creative. And by the way, a little story, when I was around 12, I thought that I would, in my life, take all the symbolism and the culture of the Nazis and use it in benefit of humanity. I had no idea that the Nazis did inversion. And with that, I will end this episode.